This is your spiritual connection, ourplanetlife.org, broadcasting from Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. Welcome to DFW Business Hour on ourplanetlive.org. It's an outreach program of Web Chapel Church of Christ. We thank you for joining us. I am Mark Garcia, your host. And today we have Gene Smith, author on a book called Lifesavers for Grandparents. In the rapidly evolving arena of family dynamics, grandparents are often called to provide a stable foundation for children. Author Gene Smith, a grandmother of 9, speaks from the field and provides guidelines for success that have been tried and tested. Personal testimonials and stories of a family's journey will inspire you to succeed as a grandparent. This is How to Do It book for mature adults who aspire to invest in the future through the lives of their grandchildren. Gene, welcome to DFW Business Hour.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us on this wonderful day. We're going to talk about how to give it. You're going to give advice on how to raise or how to talk to grandchildren.
I will try. Yes.
I was going to ask you, how did you come about to get the ideas for this fabulous book?
Really, it came from working with children. As a director and teacher in a program for children for 25 years, I really heard the message. They were telling me that they need other people in their lives. Children need significant other people, and I think that can be grandparents. And as a grandparent of 9 children, many diverse in personalities, I felt like I had a message and I wanted to share it.
Who inspired you?
The inspiration came from my children and from my grandchildren. I have discovered that working with grandchildren is a different playing field from working with your own children. And I've learned a great deal, and they inspire me in countless ways.
Why did you choose retirement as a time to begin writing?
When I retired, I felt a strong impulse. Guided by God, Holy Spirit, I don't know, but I felt like I had a story and I had to write. So I sat down at my computer and I wrote for months, and I just wrote. And when I finished writing, I was done. And I just felt like I had fulfilled what I needed to say. But I knew that I had to be a type of interpreter for children, and I wanted to put it in print. And that's why I began at that age.
How do grandparents prepare for the future in the coming of grandchildren?
Oh my, our society is changing so much, and we're all affected by these changes. And we have to come to grips with where we are and what our situation is. The one thing that I've discovered with talking with seniors and with grandparents is that most people will agree with me that when you look back, things did not turn out the way you expected, nor the way you dreamed, nor the way you hoped. But the bottom line is we take it from where we are and then we begin to build. Grandchildren need you. They need you on every single level.
Do you use personal testimonials or stories in your book to illustrate your message?
When I started writing, I used a few, and my editor said, give us more, give us more, give us more. One that I wrote is very traditional for the Christmas season. Our oldest son and his wife had a brand new baby born on December the 2nd. They were living in East Dallas, and they called on Christmas Eve and asked if I would bring them some baby supplies. And I was very nervous about making the drive late in the evening, but I drove from Irving to East Dallas, and as I walked up to this apartment, I saw my son lying under the Christmas tree with his 3-week-old daughter reading The Night Before Christmas. I stood there thinking some things change and some things remain the same. He was repeating what he had been taught as a child, and it was a very nice moment.
Wow. Does your book begin with the birth of a grandchild, or does it begin with in the expanding mature family?
I thought I could begin with the birth of grandchildren, and as I started writing, I realized that the story has to start a little bit earlier. So I backed up to the period when your own children are older teens and when they're young adults, because everything stems from there. So I backed up a little bit and then went right on into the birth of the children, and it seemed to flow then.
All right, then do you observe many grandparents eager to be involved in the lives of their grandchildren or reluctant?
I think that there are many extremes. There are some grandchildren that are very, very reluctant. They joke about, I like to see the taillights of the car as they leave. I count the minutes until the time they are gone. They make me so nervous, all of the noise, all of the confusion. There are other grandparents that are extremely involved and they enjoy every moment with their grandchildren they can. Some actually overdo it and they become obsessive and they become dominant in the lives of their children. So there are many extremes, and also there are many grandparents that have become they've become parents and grandparents. They've had to assume sometimes legal and sometimes otherwise responsibility. They do everything for the grandchildren, and their lives have become very dominated by this. So you have every extreme. And my book is geared to the parents that want suggestions and ideas on how to make the time with your grandchildren more effective, and that's what it's about.
Oh, great. What do you consider the most important chapter or guideline you offer grandparents?
Probably the most important thing I would like to mention is something that we began a long time ago. We called it Grandkids Night. We wanted our grandchildren to be close to each other. So we decided to invite the grandchildren over, and we told the parents to leave. And they could count, they could consider it a date night or whatever. We wanted time with just our grandchildren. It worked, and so we began to do this every month. We developed themes, and we did everything from being chefs to making movies to doing service projects. But we met once a month, and we continued this for about 15 years, and it was a highlight with our children. It was a highlight with our grandchildren. Each event we did photography, but we saved that, and then we turned that into a gift at Christmas time. Of all of the things I've done with my grandchildren, I would rate the Grandkids Night an A++, and they would also. It just meant that we took the time, and each time we tried to plan something, but leave some open time. One of my favorites was a night that we had a huge cardboard box. The children were very young, from 2 to 6. And I said, here's a box. I cut out a door and a window. So let me see what you can do. And about 4 hours later, they had put carpet, they had strung Christmas lights, they had put all kinds of favorite dolls and stuffed animals in. But my favorite was they wrote a sign, and they wrote some of the letters backwards, but it said House of Jesus, and they hung it up on the front. Wow. You never know what they will do. The idea is to give some plans, then give them space and watch it, and it's great to do.
Wow. Do you consider your book inspirational, information, or practical?
I consider it more practical. There are many inspirations, I hope. But I do like the practical. When I go to seminars or workshops, I always look for practical. And one of the practical things is an emphasis on how to make your gift giving count with your family. You can go out and buy a gift certificate, or you can give your grandchildren money. But if you take a little bit of effort and make that gift something special, then you are developing that tie to family. A good example would be I had a grandson playing golf. So I took a picture of his grandfather when he was 3, teaching him to swing a golf club. The second picture was my grandson teaching my husband to take the slice out of his drive. I put the 2 pictures in a frame together, and it's a prized gift. Those are the kind of things that we can do that take the essence of family, put it in the form of a gift, much, much more effective than just spending your money.
Wow, that's some great ideas. How can grandparents have a role in maintaining family ties?
Family ties are very important, but just remember that when you're working with a family, you need to make those ties very, very flexible. If you want to type a package, tight. But if you're talking about family ties, remember that there are more than one person at each intersection, your son or your daughter and your in-laws. And all of those ties and those communications need to be very flexible. If you issue an invitation, don't expect a return. If you give a gift, forget about the thank you note. Make those things very, very flexible. Even your times together have to be very flexible. One of my sons said his favorite part is when the family comes, if somebody wants to take a nap, give them a bed. If somebody wants to watch TV, show them the set. If somebody wants to do something else, give them room. But don't demand that everyone do the same thing. That's what I mean about flexible tasks.
Give them their space.
Give them space and give them room.
That's good. That's some good suggestions. What do you list communications as a source for concern in our communication society? This should be easiest of all.
You would think in our communication society that this would be very, very easy, but sometimes it becomes complex. With the teenagers, you use texting, and if you want to communicate with them, text. Forget about making a live phone call.
They won't answer.
But just remember that if you send an email or if you send a text, you're communicating with one person. And if you assume that that communication is passed on, that is not necessarily true always. Sometimes misinformation can be such a culprit. I recall a time when I was teaching young children, and my mother had been ill, and the time came that I lost my mother. Well, the substitute teacher told the children that my mother had died. When I returned to school the following week, the children were very subdued, and I talked with them about how I felt about this. But one of the children were on the way to school, and he turned to his mother and said, "What day is this?" And she said, "It's Tuesday." And he said, "Good, because mothers die on Wednesdays." This child had taken that story, misinterpreted it, and developed an anxiety about Wednesday. Make your communication clear. Make sure you communicate with everybody. Follow up if you need to. Do not assume that everyone knows what you have done, especially when it comes to setting dates or making plans. That has to be communicated.
That's great information. What do you call family DNA?
Well, I listened to teenagers several years ago talking about how dull their families were. Our family doesn't do anything. But I think families just need to learn to take what your interest is and then do it. It doesn't matter what it is. It is part of your family. Some families travel. Some families go to concerts. Some families go to sport events. Some families read. But DNA is just what your family is all about. Some come on time, some are always late. Some love public schools, some love homeschooling. Some are relaxed, others are rigid. Some are messy and some are neat. Some are heavy and some are thin. Some financially successful, some not. It's all different. And that DNA is very important. And learn to emphasize it, take pictures, talk about it, record it as part of your family history. It is a point of pride for your family and for your grandchildren.
Wow. Have you enjoyed being a grandmother?
I have loved every moment of being a grandparent. And as they grow older and then great-grandchildren come into the picture, I think the joy continues. Sometimes we have to take our own personality and realize that we don't change as we get older. Usually the part of our personality just becomes more extreme. For me, I've always loved to plan. And I know that this becomes more extreme as I get older. So I have to really work on making my plans and then putting them away and see what happens. And I have to be a little bit more flexible.
Do you share disappointments, bad times, or tragedies to relate to others in your writing?
I really felt like I had to. I wrote in the book a day when I felt like that I had run away from home. And I truly did. I just had to have some space from everything. I also wrote about the birth of our severely handicapped grandson, because that was a low for our entire family. That was a time, I think, that I felt like God's love was like a warm blanket surrounding all of us, because we were told that he would not live through the day, that he would not live through 2 days, he would not make the week. He is now 20. He is loved by all members of our family, but it has been a very, very difficult road, and God's love has surrounded us all of the way. Those are some of the things that I included in my book, because that's life. We all have those things.
Do you think that situation has brought your family closer together?
closer together on some areas. There are some areas it's caused strife, but you just have to work through it as it goes.
How about blended families?
Blended families. I'm sorry, when I started to write, I realized I do not know that story. My husband and I have been married for 56 years, and I do not know blended families, but I sat and interviewed a lot of blended families. And what I discovered is that they have to work on such a different level. But the main thing is learn to accept and to be diverse. Remember that diverse is not a bad word. And the fact that someone is different, or someone has a child over here, or someone has lived abroad, or somebody has a great-grandmother that did this, all of these things are part of our family. And even though they're not what we understand, and they may be difficult to deal with in some ways, the bottom line is love, accept, and many times for the grandmothers, it's a matter of being quiet and letting other people speak.
Be zipped.
Yes, very much so.
How do we know when enough is enough? Time to quit.
I think that God expects us to do what we can in this life as long as we can. I don't think that we take a recliner and say, that's it. I think we leave our door open and our phone turned on, and we communicate as we can. I woke up this morning thinking that giving is a wonderful thing, but when you give when it is inconvenient to yourself, or when you do not feel like giving, or you do not think that you can go all the way, then it's a true gift of love. And many times grandchildren will request that.
I see. What are the keys to holding families together as they grow and expand?
As they grow and expand, I think it's a matter of being there. It is so easy for grandparents to feel like that you want to lecture, that you want to teach, that you want to point out mistakes. But if you can just swallow that back, forget it, listen, ask a few questions, let them talk, and accept what they're telling you in confidence and with love, then you can continue going. I think it's very important to have family traditions, and a tradition is very easy. You just do something and do it again, and you've got a tradition, and that's great. Sometimes food pulls people together, and sometimes it's a matter of acceptance with other people. Little things like you have a family meal. If you have someone new at that table, don't talk about things that person does not know. Make sure that person is included in your conversation. Don't work on alienation. Remember that you accept others. Many times in a family, you need one person who kind of pulls everyone together, plans events, or says, why don't we do so and so? That is a difficult role to follow. It is a necessary role, and many times as grandparents, but you have to take one step forward and 2 steps back, because you're planning people's lives, and you have to be very careful when you do that.
Yeah. How have your children reached to their story being revealed in the book?
They were very hesitant at first. They asked if I was going to use names. They wanted to know how much detail I was going to use. And I think they've responded very well. They're all professionals. All 3 of my children are doctors and very well educated. And they really are the reason that I decided to finally publish the book. They gave me that inspiration.
Great. I was going to ask you, is there any, where can people get your book? Is it available on Amazon.com?
It's available on Amazon.com. You can also go on your internet and go to Google. You can find it there. You can also go to my website, J. Smith Books, and an email is there, and resources on how to find the book.
You were telling me that it's also available on digital
Yes,
nowadays.
It is also on digital, on Kindle or Nook or any of the palettes.
Well, Jean, it's been a pleasure, and we thank you for dropping by DFW Business Hour to talk about this fabulous book, which we have a copy here that people can go out to the website that Jean mentioned. Which was that again, Jean, the website? The
website, J. Smith Books, jsmithbooks.com.
You can get this book. It's available, and you can also get it digital. So go out and get this book and got some great grandparenting skills on there. But we thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Have a great week.
Thank you very much.